Welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations, your authority in navigating the world of homeschooling diverse learners. Featuring Peggy Ployhar from SPED Homeschool, Annie Yorty from AnnieYorty.com, Leilani Melendez from Living with Eve, Stephanie Buckwalter from eLARP Learning, and Dawn Jackson from Dawn Jackson Educational Consulting and Tutoring. With over 75 years of combined homeschooling expertise, experiences, and perspectives, this group is eager to share their wealth of wisdom to empower your homeschooling journey. So grab your favorite mug, settle in, and get ready for insightful discussions, valuable insights, and practical tips. Give your homeschool the power boost it needs to successfully educate the unique learners in your home.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Empowering Homeschool Conversations. Today, we are going to talk about strategic homeschooling, assessing last year and planning ahead for diverse learners. And my guest is one of my co-hosts, Annie Yorty. Annie is a wife, mother, writer, speaker who brings hope and encouragement to those navigating tough times. Her life is filled with unexpected twists, which has deepened her reliance on God's presence and purpose. Annie's advocacy journey began with the birth of her first child, who has Down syndrome. She finds joy in helping others discover their needs and sources of support. Her advocacy spans parenting, disability support, global missions, homeschooling, Bible teaching, and Annie has inspired audiences across 4 continents and contributes to various blogs and online magazines, including Crosswalk. Her book, From Ignorance to Bliss, God's Heart Revealed Through Down Syndrome, shares the hope she found through her parenting journey. As a lifelong learner and craft enthusiast, Annie also enjoys playing the piano and ukulele, traveling on mission trips, and spending time with her Labradoodle. She lives in Pennsylvania with her husband, Jeff, an Air Force veteran. Together, they have 3 children, and Annie encourages others to look upward and perceive God amidst life's challenges. I'm so excited to have you on the show as a guest today, Annie.
I know, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I know. When you're on the other side, it's fun to be interviewed because there's a whole lot going on when you're the interviewer. So it gives you the opportunity to just share from your expertise, and you have so much to share with our audience. So I'm excited that you wanted to talk about this topic because we're going to be coming into a new school year, and sometimes we feel bad about what we had in the past, but to assess it with the right eyes and to look forward to the school year with hope instead of maybe dread. I remember years where I was like, oh no, not another year. Yeah. But we don't want you to feel that way. So Annie's going to give you some encouragement today. So stick in with us and just realize that there's so much more. Do you want to just start out with maybe an encouraging word to the parents, just to kind of give them an idea of, what we're going to be talking about and how this is going to help with preparing for the next year and reviewing the year in the past? Yes.
I know that we get to the end of the school year and feel just ready to be done.
Right.
We are done. And I get that. I did not expect that when I first started homeschooling, but that first year I was like, oh, I can't wait to finish and just put this behind me and have a break. I liken this concept of evaluation to like if you go on a hike or something like that, you are going to have a map or some kind of signposts, on the trees, or you're going to have a GPS, something, a compass even. And if you are just walking along on your hike without ever consulting these tools that you have really could get far afield of your that beautiful scenery that you want to see at the end of your hike.
Exactly.
You need to actually pause along your way of the hike and look at your compass, look at your GPS, your map, whatever you're using. And so that's the same idea here. This is a homeschooling journey. And if we don't pause every now and then and intentionally look at well, like, what were we aiming for? And,
Right.
how did we do? Did we meet any of that? And why not? Or if we did, oh, we want to do more of that. So
Hmm.
it's positives and negatives. We're going to look at both just honestly and see how it can guide us for the future.
Absolutely. Yes. It's not a race to the finish line. There's so much to be enjoyed and to be learned through the process. And it's so easy to get that tunnel vision, though, because we just, some of those days we do survive and we just want to get to the end of the day. And I always thought, oh, those people that homeschool year round, I have no idea how they do it. I always had to have my summers off because I needed a break so badly.
Mhm. Yeah.
But some can, and they just take it easier. And I think maybe that's the key to it, is that you're not so stressed during the school year, and you can go through through the summer. But however you do it, get some encouragement.
Yeah, there's a variety of ways. There's not a one size fits all way to evaluate.
Mhm.
We think of the evaluation time as just looking at different areas of our homeschooling journey. We look at our children. I think most people look at evaluation as, well, we used this book this year for math. Did we get through all of the book? And then if we don't
Right.
get through all of the book, we're like, oh no, we failed. and
Yeah,
and
because the book was the rule, or
right,
the
yeah.
ruler of your success.
But that's not, especially with our kiddos, that's not necessarily our goal. We may take a couple years to go through a book.
Right.
We may
Hmm.
switch books in the middle. We
Right.
may,
Uh-huh.
we
Yes.
may have some modified goals from that book, something like that. So
Hmm.
we are just wanting to see progress for our children,
Yes. Yeah.
really any child. I think that's the way it is,
Hmm.
because learning isn't a neat little package,
No.
that well, it all fits into these 9 months of the year. So,
Right.
you know, we see
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
fits and starts on the learning, and that's okay.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, evaluation is important. But can you talk to us about, like, instead of just assessing at the end of the year, it what about regular evaluations, and what does that look like?
Yeah. So we can pause along the way in the school year too. It certainly is like,
Hmm.
you start working with something you think might work with your child. You
Right.
have this great curriculum you heard about, and you're excited about it. Maybe they're excited, maybe not, but you're
Maybe.
doing it and you're throwing
Right.
all you have into it, and you're not really getting any traction with it. Maybe
Hmm.
you're just getting discouraged with that. And so there's certainly nothing wrong with, come Thanksgiving or Christmas, you're you can look at that and say, well, what's going on here? Is this, maybe the book
Mm,
isn't right for your child's learning style? It could be
correct.
a
Yep.
variety. It could be that your child has other needs right now, that the
That's
child
true.
may have
Hmm.
some emotional needs that need to be dealt with, or
Hmm.
some behavioral needs. We're going to maybe just put aside some of the academics and focus on the behavioral needs that might be presenting themselves. And that's the beauty of homeschooling, that we can
Hmm.
be that flexible to meet the
Right.
child's true needs.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes. And to take those stops and kind of figure things out, and to not feel like, I think a lot of times we're letting the curriculum or the books that we choose dictate, um, just the overall atmosphere of our house,
Hmm.
because we're trying to gauge everything around the way that curriculum was written and try to make our child fit into that box, and and when the struggle happens, it upsets everything,
Well,
instead
I'll,
of
I'll
doing those
mention
evaluations.
Oh, yeah, I'll mention one other thing that I think influences us, besides just that curriculum or that other people, and what we
Yes.
see with another family, those children,
Mhm.
those perfect children over there.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
The ones that other
they-
people have,
that's
when we don't
right.
see all of them. Yeah.
That can really influence our perception of our own
Mm.
children if we're not careful. That
Yeah.
comparison is sort of deadly. I think I remember, this was actually before I homeschooled. My daughter was in public school for a couple of years, and she was not writing. I mean,
Hmm.
she could maybe put some chicken scratch on the paper, to copy
Right.
some letters, and she was in second grade at the time. And the teacher, this was at the end of the year at an IEP meeting, and the teacher, we had this IEP meeting that seemed really positive. And then at the end, she pulled out this piece of paper, and on it, that filled the whole page, was this lovely printing, like a little essay. And she said,
Hmm.
"Oh, just so you know, this is what the other second graders are doing." And in writing. So she showed me, and it was really nice.
Mm.
But by comparison, like I said, my daughter was pretty much just barely able to press on the page with her pencil. And she certainly
Right.
wasn't creating her own, ideas, putting them on paper. She could copy a few
Mhm.
things. But I know I just felt like a balloon that had been deflated.
Oh,
I was
absolutely.
pretty pleased with we had made progress in
Yeah.
the year,
Uh-huh.
but then that just deflated me, and I was demoralized by that. I don't know that
Mm.
that teacher intended for me to be, so I'm not assigning that to her, but um,
Yeah.
it took away from the progress. And that can
Mm.
happen with us at any time where, we're hanging out with other people, and we may observe where they're at or what those
Mhm.
children are doing, and then get start looking at what we're doing, and the progress we're
Yeah.
making, as if it's not enough.
Yeah.
So I just want to caution that evaluation isn't to make you feel demoralized or
Mhm.
discouraged. It's to help you just take your next steps.
Yes. Yeah. And in a lot of states, showing progress is required. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about state requirements and assessments? Because I know sometimes it's mandatory, in a lot of
Mhm.
states it's not. But for those that it is, it really is a stressor for a lot of parents
Yes.
because sometimes they can forego the regular like standardized testing by showing progress. But I think parents are kind of at a loss because it seems so ambiguous about showing
Mhm.
progress too.
Yeah, yep. It is kind of an ambiguous thing, right? Because it doesn't say
Right.
what kind of progress or how
Most of the
much
time it doesn't.
progress,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So,
Mhm.
well, I think that just gives us some freedom, you know. If
Yes.
the law doesn't really define it as anything more, with more parameters, then we have
Yep.
freedom.
Yeah,
And we do want to be responsible with our freedom,
exactly.
even when we're in a state where there's no requirement at all. And I've lived in those states, a state like that.
Yeah.
I've homeschooled in a state where they did require a standardized test.
Mhm.
And, that was challenging, because our kids don't always take standardized tests
Right.
very well.
Exactly.
But
Mhm.
really, there was no authority that was saying, "Oh, your kid didn't do well enough on that test. Now you can't
Mhm.
homeschool anymore." So, I tried to pick a test for her that was, more, um, doable for her. It wasn't a timed test,
Right.
and, if I recall, it allowed for some reading of questions and that, but it was still satisfying the state requirement for a
Mhm.
standardized test. So, I took that for what it was worth. Some of it was
Right.
helpful for me to see, was there any progress over last year? Are we
Mhm.
stagnant or, with this testing? But we can't always do that with our kids because some of them just don't test like that at all. So,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
even if your child is completely, not really able to take the test, if your state has that requirement, just do
Mhm.
it and let the chips fall where they may. You've fulfilled
Right.
the requirement. Okay, that's being
Exactly.
responsible. Some
Yeah.
states, like the one where I live now, I remember when I moved to Pennsylvania. Oh, I did not like having to do, they have a lot of oversight. So you as a parent
Mhm.
have to produce a portfolio which is,
Yes.
kind of a summary of each subject that you taught and
Mhm.
with samples. And at
Right.
certain ages, you have to do standardized testing, and
Mhm.
you have to give them a plan for your year. And
Wow.
you also have to have that portfolio and the child evaluated by a certified teacher.
Yes.
So I was just like, what? That's,
Where,
that's what
why
a
are we
friend.
moving here? Yes.
You're like, no, they don't need all that. But that's, I lived in Pennsylvania, so I have to,
Yes.
that's what I did. And
Mhm.
after I kind of settled down and did it, I actually saw some benefit from making that portfolio.
Yeah.
The part about going to the certified teacher, that we can debate whether that's good on another day.
Right.
The people I went to were helpful. Like if I had
Mhm.
questions and things like that, they would help me and give me advice, that type of
Right.
thing. But the
Mhm.
portfolio itself was really kind of neat because
Hmm.
it forced me to do this evaluation of where
Yes.
we had started and where we had ended. And
Mhm.
I learned like, oh, we did more than I thought this year when I really started to put it down on paper.
Mhm.
And you think about all the things that go into a portfolio like that.
Absolutely.
Um, for the state, there's sort of a requirement of what to do, but you
Mhm.
don't have to put everything I'm talking about in yours if you don't have a requirement. But
Right.
um, but really, I listed every curriculum and what products, what things we used,
Right.
and how much of it we went through,
Hmm.
and put some, if there were grades or something like that when they get to a point, where you're grading things or
Right.
needing a transcript, that comes in handy.
Mhm.
Um, I also included a lot of other stuff that
Hmm.
we were doing, things like field trips.
Oh,
And you can make this sort of like a scrapbook. It's interesting to
yes.
look back at.
Uh-huh.
You can do the field trips you go on, list those. You can
Hmm.
put things like lessons your child might take, or artwork, or
Mhm.
service that they
Yeah.
do for
Uh-huh.
others. All these things are part of your homeschool year.
Mhm.
And when you put all this together, it really quantifies what you've been up to. And you may
Right.
not have really thought about all that, but I
Mhm.
get to the end of the year and I was like, here, I actually dug one out because it's been a while. But
Okay.
I dug it
Yeah.
out, and it's just in a little notebook, nothing
Right.
special. And I was like, wow, this is really neat. And it's
Yeah.
something to look back at and just
Mhm.
be proud of. And so I really encourage people, after all that griping about doing this portfolio
Right.
and evaluation, I do encourage um, people to make their own portfolio and just think about
Mm.
all the educational experiences your child has had, and kind of put it all into that notebook. And even kids, like you could, if your child is verbal, you can interview them about different
Right.
experiences they had and record them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good things that can come out of that.
Definitely. Yes. We tend to think on the worst, that nothing happened, that we remember all the stuff we didn't do right.
Yeah.
But if we have that ability to go back and see the things that did go right, the things our kids did, it's an encouragement too, for both us and our student, that things are
Yes.
happening. And yes, yeah, we lived in a state where standardized testing was required. My favorite was the Peabody test because it was oral and there
Mhm.
was no writing required. And so the testing administrator, it was kind of like a game show where they asked you questions, you answered questions, you had no idea if you got them right or wrong. So the way that the tester ends the test is that if the child gets 3 in a row wrong, then they move on to the next subject. And so they have no idea. I never told my kids that. They're probably
Mhm.
learning that now. They won't listen to the show. But it's a little bit easier of a standardized test than some of the other ones. But
Mhm.
but yes, depending on states, there's different requirements, and some states do allow the portfolios and replacement of the standardized tests, and some require both. It's just, you got to know your state laws. So if you don't know those, contact your state organization.
Yeah, I was going to think we do need to share with the audience how they can find out this information. So, they're not out in left field wondering.
Right. And we'll put a link up to the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, because you can find all of the state laws on their website too. And so that would be helpful for you to find that there. But yes, assessments, they may just seem like they're just a lot of waste of time, especially if they're not required. But I have to say, even though I pretty much knew what was going to be, where my kids were going to fall for the evaluations, it still gave me a peace of mind that I was making progress, even though I kind of knew I was making progress, but I tend to be the one to be thinking I didn't do enough. And so that is helpful.
Yes. Yep. It doesn't hurt to do it. And, it's basically a day or a couple days, depending on how you do it, and you put it behind you and move on. So don't attach too much significance, but it could be a useful tool in the evaluation process.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and also to help you celebrate, what are some ways or, criteria or questions that parents can kind of think over so that they can put, whether it's a whole year or just a time block, in perspective, so that they can take the good out of it too, and not just
I think
we didn't do right.
As we do, it's okay to look at things that were difficult. Certainly the challenging things, we can analyze those, but we want to analyze both sides of things. I always say capitalize on those strengths that you have. But as we go along in this evaluation, like you said, whether it's the end of the year or middle of the road or whatever, you can look at your materials and just kind of think about what curriculum you're using, and think about what worked well. What things seem to really click, and then figure out and just pause and think, why did that work or not work? And that's going to help you in the future to make a choice for your next thing. Of course, if you have something that works well, you probably have found something that works with your child's learning style and their abilities, and it's well matched for them. So that you want to capitalize on that. Like I said, you might think about, like, a curriculum might be good, but it may not foster independence from you. And as moms with a couple of kids, or even one kid, the homeschooling can really stretch you and your time, depending on what you have in your schedule, how busy you are. And sometimes some curriculum needs more of your direction, and others can be a little more self-directed. And really, there's a lot of options or ways to adapt to help our kids have a little independence. I know as Alyssa got older in particular, she didn't want me directing every little thing. So give them some of that. It would relieve you of some, free up some of your time if there's a way that you can find a curriculum that, begins to foster some independent learning at whatever level you're at. So that's one thing kind of additionally to think about when you're picking a curriculum. So when you can find something where you might just need to be near, but not necessarily hand over hand, because there's some of that for us pretty much always. But also things like preparation time. If you've got a busy schedule, and this curriculum may be a great curriculum, but boy, does it have a lot of upfront prep time. It may not be right for you, depending on your life at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. If you, if you're in like a situation where you don't have a lot of prep time, or where, maybe your life has a lot of twists and turns, let's say, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
You may want to try to prepare things over the summer, like
Yep.
look through your curriculum and see like what needs to be prepared each week and kind of try to get a jump on that in the summertime
Right.
and get it set up and put in folders or on the computer or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But if you can do that, then you're not going to be falling behind as easily when life
Right. Or
takes
skipping a
long
lesson
from
because you don't have everything that you need for it.
Yeah.
Because I remember being
Yeah. I
there.
mean, I had, in the middle of my homeschooling career, I was diagnosed with MS and my physical condition was really bad. And, that was totally unexpected. And I just didn't have the energy to do all that. So it helped that I had prepared some things ahead of time and could rely on that to keep it going when I had days when I couldn't get off a couch, So, so things happen. We just don't expect that, But another question we might ask is how could we adapt these materials better for our child's needs?
Oh, yeah.
Or we may need to use them differently than they are recommending because we know our child, we're the expert on our kiddos and we know what they need. So it's okay to do that, take that liberty. That's why we homeschool. So we can teach them the way they need to learn. So that's, you may need to break up lessons into smaller chunks or, just space them out. If you have a child who can't write, you need to find another way for them a creative way for them to show what they know. And
exactly.
So there's lots of things there you can think about. Also, you want to think about like the mix of the different materials you're using. So some things for your child will be more challenging than others. And kids need to feel like they're succeeding at something. If everything is a challenge, well, I mean, we do too, even as moms who are teaching. If everything is just so difficult, we're not motivated to continue on. So of course we need to challenge them. There's this, we want to push them to the next level, but we need to have a pace that we can say we have achieved something here, and so we might have, one subject that's going to always be challenging, and then find some balance in that. So there's something else your child feels very successful at. And so try to think about that as you evaluate what went on in your schoolwork. Does your child feel like they have some victories in this? And also like homeschooling isn't just academics, right? It's a lifestyle. So have you excluded the lifestyle part by just an over focus on academics? Just the lifestyle part, I think, makes it interesting, makes it fun.
Absolutely. And that's where the life skills usually come in. Our kids are watching us. They're learning, and it's just part of the curriculum that we didn't plan.
That's right. Yeah, it could be things around the house that they are learning to do, skills they learn for home living. It could be some kind of volunteer things. It could be helping the neighbor, whatever. But those are important for building the character of your child. So, and don't think our children who have special needs and abilities don't need those experiences where they are giving to other people. So yeah, don't, I've been guilty of that where I get to, very kind of a tunnel vision for, what, we got to get this done, and forget about those other experiences that build our children.
Well, and that's where these questions that you just gave us, which are amazing, help us to evaluate, not so much to bring us down, but to help us then learn from what we've done previously and go, how can we make this even better next year? And I think if we go into it with that perspective, is that we're always improving, we're always getting better. And I I just remember, seeing those moms who have homeschooled for a while and thinking, oh, they got it all together. And I was waiting for that time when I would have it all together, and I never quite got there. But I got
Never
better
found
at
that
it.
either.
I got better at it every year.
Yeah. And we can also use our, we can use our evaluation time to think about our child kind of as the individual and where they're at developmentally.
Right.
It's not all just the curriculum that we're looking at and evaluating. Yeah. We want to know, think about and celebrate any achievements they've made, any milestones or new skills they learned.
Absolutely.
That really boosts our motivation to continue when we do that. And we want to think
theirs too.
Oh, absolutely. And we think as moms, how can we nurture what's begun, in this child, and to keep that ball rolling. And we also like to look at the interests of our children. They might express an interest in, I don't know, playing the piano or building with Legos. That there's a lot of educational things we can do with some of the toy-based learning, or building something, or it could be anything. But if our child expresses an interest, have we given them an opportunity to try it? To see if that's really something they can take hold of and to explore it. So, and older children can give you input in that, but sometimes I might hear my child say something like that, but again, I sort of have my little agenda and it might fall by the wayside. So that's why when we evaluate, we can say, so maybe it'll come back to mind and we can say, oh, this year I really do want to give that opportunity.
Right. And it's so good to do that when they're younger, that they get to try things out, because making those decisions and trying those things out as they get older gets more expensive. Yes, it requires more time away from things that are, they just have more things going on too in their lives. And it's harder to find that time. So trying out lots of stuff and saying, well, that was a good experiment. Didn't work. It wasn't for us. Or, wow, I can't believe you enjoyed that so much. I've heard from so many parents that they've delved into things that they never thought would stick with their kids, and they did. Or they thought their kids thought they would love it, or the parents thought they would love it, and then they walked away and went, "Oh no, this is not for us."
Well, that's what I've always heard is kind of at the younger ages, let them try a whole variety of things. You don't need to go deep into it and become the experts at that age. It's a matter of letting them try different things. And then as they grow older, they'll some will fall by the wayside and they'll deepen their interest in something. So help them to find their passion.
My daughter was one of those weird ones though. Because I taught her how to sew when she was really young, maybe 5 or 6, and she wanted to sew all the time. Then all of a sudden the sewing machine disappeared. And at about 14, it came back out of the closet, and she couldn't put the thing away. And she started making her own clothes, and I was like, where did this come from? And so, just, sometimes you just don't know. Yeah. You're planting seeds. I think that's a good way to look at it. And you just don't know which ones are going to pop up when. Some might hibernate. I don't know.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's a cool story though. I like, that's neat.
So
we also I was going to add, I think one more thing about just evaluating where our children are at, because, we have to deal with behavioral issues sometimes that might stem from a disability, or it might not. It just might be part of everyday life. But, because typical kids have behavioral issues too. But you kind of do have to look back over your year or whatever time frame you're doing this and say, how are those issues affecting the learning? How do they affect the homeschooling? Are you always butting heads, with your child? Are there character issues that need to be addressed more than academic issues? Or, what emotional needs are bringing this behavior? And so we might think about, do we need to modify our environment to make it more advantageous for a child? Are they overstimulated, understimulated? Did the pace that you're keeping cause these behavioral issues? You have to kind of
Right.
look at all these little things. Sometimes just slowing down will reduce stress and
Yeah.
the behavior will settle. Sometimes not, but
Yeah. No.
but yeah, and then we get to the end of all that evaluation and we think about whether we need to continue with the same materials or move on to something new. If you
Yeah.
haven't finished a book, nothing wrong with keeping on in the
Right.
next year. You've paid for that book, might as
Right.
well use it
Honestly.
all.
Yep.
So there's just because it says fourth grade on the book cover doesn't mean you
Right.
can't continue to use it into the next year if it worked well.
Absolutely.
If it didn't work well,
Mhm.
you can choose something else. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah. No, those are all really, really good because there's just so much to sort through and think through. And, I'm hoping that as people are listening or watching right now, that they've been processing a lot of the questions you've been giving us, because it's important that we think through and we don't just keep charging ahead, because the problem is then we think about it afterwards and we don't think about it in a good perspective. It's like this rushed, fearful, anxiety driven thoughts that tend to take us places that aren't going to be productive in planning. When we can take the time, we can step back, we can evaluate with a peace of mind, and then know that this is all moving us in the right direction when we assess it from the right perspective. So as far as like organizing, I know, I've always started out my years so organized, and then things kind of fall into disarray. It's kind of like my house. Everything on the outside looks really nice, and just don't look behind any cupboard doors in my house. Just warn people, don't open that one. Everything will fall
people
off.
have those glass cupboard doors, and I'm like, I don't know about
No, that
that.
would
I
not do
could
well in
never.
my house.
Yeah. So, well, this is a natural time to sort of organize and put away some old stuff and
Right.
then prepare what you're going to do the next year. I think people wonder if they need to keep everything they've ever done throughout the year.
Yes.
And I would say, no, you don't.
Right.
You're going to have a lot. Even if it's on the computer, you don't need to keep everything, but it's easier.
Well, thinking back to your portfolio you showed, if that was a year's worth and it was that thin, yes, definitely. I'm sure you did way more than that in that year.
This is true. But I saved basically a couple of samples. When my kids were really young and they did like little art projects and things like that, I would, put those into a notebook sometimes.
Right.
You can just kind of reorganize your things, throw away some of your things, take pictures if you're really feeling attached to it. Yes. Organize your stuff on the computer. Your files, maybe they're kind of scattered, and you can sit. This might be a good time where you have some time to sit and rearrange things on your computer. It's hard to keep track of all those things. Whatever we have stored is well. I like the saying that whatever you have, whatever you own owns you. So that includes the files that we keep.
So good.
We don't want to keep moving these and organizing them and all that, but take some artwork, frame it, hang it on the walls, and then let the rest go at some point. Take pictures of them, and also organize your goals for the next year, not just your physical materials, but you're going to think about what is coming next. That's a natural thing once you've done an evaluation, and you're going to think about what materials to use, what extracurricular types of activities you want to incorporate, and the pace of your work. And
absolutely,
I'm always overly ambitious, putting too many things in, but then
Yeah.
reality will hit at some point, and I'll evaluate and pare it back a little bit.
Right.
Think about what you might need to drop some things from your schedule to make your life more
Right.
peaceful and restful.
Mhm.
So, some people write their goals down, other people don't. I think it's okay either way. I was forced
Mhm.
to in Pennsylvania to turn that into the school district, but I didn't always do that. It might have been
Yeah.
a little more in my head, but that's a good time to just look at your goals and begin
Right.
preparing for the next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people have homeschool IEPs, and whether they fill in the goal section or not, that's up to them. Some people
Mhm.
really, they're very much like to have a plan based on, some specific goals that they're trying to reach. And so that makes sense to do that.
It's also a
But
good
yeah.
time as you're thinking about the next year to think about if you need some kind of outside help for a
Yes.
particular issue that you're dealing
Mhm.
with your child. Maybe you suspect there's some diagnosis,
Mhm.
or if there are behavioral issues that you're really struggling to
Yeah,
get a
they're being,
hold of and settle down.
yes. Hmm.
An outside person might be able to help you with that and give you a new strategy to try, and so that you don't start out the new year with.
I think we have a little lag here with Annie, but hopefully she'll catch up soon. Might have her repeat what she was saying, and hopefully her picture will come back soon. Um, but yes, getting help, having a team, so vitally important. And we talk about that a lot on the show. And so if you feel like you do need help, definitely be considering that, reaching out to people, asking who's available, who's got some expertise in this area. And if you don't know, it looks like Annie popped off for a little while here. If you don't know anybody, definitely look through our YouTube channel, because on the Empowering Homeschool Conversations channel, you can do a search on particular topics on our channel, and then find an expert I did an interview with, see if they're available to provide you some resources or help you out specifically in that area. So just some ways to consider getting some extra help. So um, since we are recording this, I'm going to just stop talking, and we'll stop at 22 or 42 and see if Annie pops back.
Well, can you hear me now?
Sorry, had muted myself. After we're done, I can splice this section out.
Good.
And
That was a
then,
little bizarre.
yeah. Yeah, that's weird. Oh, well. We'll
So,
just
okay.
kind of,
Well, I think we were at a natural break at least. Kind
yeah.
of.
So I'll bring it back in since I added something in about having a team and all of
Okay.
that. And so so we'll go from 42 to 47.
Okay. Thanks for bearing with that. I'm not sure what was
Oh,
going on there.
yeah, no. So we got Annie back, and I think my next question is about, how do we celebrate? I think a lot of times we're like, oh, our child's made an accomplishment. Do we make a big deal about it? Do we not make a big? What are some ways we can celebrate different milestones or when we see progress in kind of the right context with our child
Yeah,
and ourselves too?
I'm a big fan of fun. So, and I like celebrations. Yeah, I like to do them throughout the school year, actually, but especially at the end of the year, you and your child or children have worked hard. And it's a
Absolutely.
big deal to get to the end of that. And you don't want to just run past that achievement without recognizing what's been done. In the Bible, God routinely told his people to celebrate different events
Absolutely.
and things that he
Yes.
had done for them. So I think we can take a page from that chapter and say, that's good for us too.
Yes.
So I think, I think it should be a family tradition that at the end of every
Mm,
school year, you do something special. And that could, the sky's the limit, however you want to do that. Some people will, have a big family dinner together that's got special food and things like that. Some people like have a big ice cream party. Some do, like a co-op celebration. I know
oh, yeah.
with a
Mhm.
group that I had started years ago, we would always have an end of the year celebration with our friends.
Yeah.
And so it could be all kinds of ways that you do that. But I think
Mhm.
some of the things that, I want to say too, it's great to invite your extended family or friends, like the
Yes.
grandparents, because they, some of them are skeptical.
Right.
Others are not, but either way, they'll see what your child's achieved too. So it
Right.
it will just be a moment for them
Mhm.
to enter into that celebration. But
Absolutely.
you could definitely honor each child
Mm.
with find something they've achieved and
Yeah.
honor them, either just by telling about it, taking a minute to um, just say some words of affirmation,
Right.
or you might make a little certificate or something like that about
Mhm.
certain achievements. Um, you might give them an opportunity to show something that they've done. Could be like a
Right.
talent show that each child will
Mm.
do
Mhm.
something. And talent shows aren't just like, let's sing a song or whatever. It could be
Right.
they're going to show, like your daughter sewed things. Maybe she's going to
Mhm.
show some of her
Like a fashion
handicrafts.
show or something.
So,
Yes. Uh-huh.
right. So it could be things like that. They might play a musical instrument,
Mhm.
but just make that a special time where they're honored. Um,
Right.
and it's not a bad idea. I know it seems a little self-serving, but to like encourage them to honor you and the work that you've
Mhm.
done, that gives them an understanding that someone is sacrificing for them and help them
Right.
to develop an understanding and appreciation for their moms.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
maybe there's a dad that's gonna, take the time to do
Mhm.
that, to say those words or some other way, but it's not a bad idea to do that.
Mm.
Some people will, go out and do something special. Maybe, just um, some will go like a weekend trip to the beach. Something like that would be a great
Right.
way to end if you
Mhm.
have a beach nearby. I think one of the most important elements of that celebration is to thank God,
Yeah.
because it's through his blessing and his equipping that you've been able to homeschool and that your children are learning and achieving something. And just make sure that he's like the one who's getting the glory for what's happening in your home. And, that just teaches your children to rely on him for wisdom and guidance and encouragement and help. So all of these kinds of traditions just bond you together, and it's fun too.
Yes.
So
it
those
is.
are my suggestions. You will come up, if you start thinking about it, you'll come up with many more, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it is very family specific, child specific as to what you consider a celebration. I know even my kids, they all wanted different things for graduation. It was not the same. Only one had a graduation party, and that was kind of last minute because he's like, "Oh, yeah, probably." But it's just, you just okay. We'll just take the celebration however they want. One just wanted a dinner at the end of all of his high school stuff. It's like, okay, just family dinner. That's fine.
That is good. The older children definitely can have input. And the younger ones may have some ideas. Some might be wild, but
right, exactly. We may have to tone it down a little bit instead of ramp it up. but all good, definitely, for sure. So once we do an evaluation of the previous year, close the books, summer, are they learning during the summer? Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think we think, oh, well, school's put away, so learning has shut down.
right. There we are. Oh, praise the Lord.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll cut that section out too.
There's so many things our kids can be doing over the summer, and it doesn't need to all be programmed by you. That's the thing about it. Our kids need time to just let their brains rest, let what they've learned over the last months percolate, I call it, and just let it's a time for them to be bored sometimes, a time for them to figure some things out on their own. You don't have to hover over them with what's going on in their lives. It's a time to sort of provide some materials and turn them loose. So we talked about some other things you can do over the summer, like teaching some home living skills that maybe you don't feel like you have time to do during the school year because of the academic schedule or other things on your schedule. I do encourage people to really limit the electronics. You know how quickly when you pull out your phone, it can be that like a couple hours goes past. Well, the whole summer can go by like that for your kids if they have phones. They start when they wake up in the morning and boom, the day is gone. So I think it's really important to not fill their brains with that easy kind of, games or whatever. Let them figure out how to entertain themselves in the summertime, and socialize with people, have friends over, go do stuff out in the world, teach them how to plan meals, how to shop on a budget, just the normal things you're doing, how to do new chores so that the next school year they can take over that, something like that. But even things like if your child does camps or some might learn to play and take some lessons, like some musical lessons or something like that, to see if there's an interest over the summer. Like, there's all kinds of things at libraries to do that are free often. You could go out into nature, and each one has a little journal that they sketch or write about what they're observing. Make scrapbooks. I've been at Good News Camp all week. That's I'll
Oh,
put a
yeah.
plug in for that. Go out in the world and enjoy it. Hiking, camping, join a bowling league, make a
Right.
garden, build
Mhm.
something. Those are some cool things for kids to do in the summer, families to do together to just bond you together as a family. I also
Absolutely.
encourage moms to take a little time to recharge their own batteries. You
Absolutely.
know, read a
Mhm.
book for no reason whatsoever.
Right.
If that's your
Uh-huh.
thing, learn a new craft.
Mhm.
Have someone over for coffee and just sit and
Right.
chat a little
Yeah,
bit.
adult conversation.
Pick up a Bible study for the summer only, where
Mhm.
you might be able to go out to do that, or even some of them are online now. So,
Right,
um,
yeah.
clean out your closets. That may seem like
Mhm.
work, but that's kind of refreshing to get it
It
done,
is,
to
yes, because
restore
you can
that
get on
order.
information overload of, yeah, how much stuff you
So,
own and,
yeah.
all the choices you have to make. So, but yes, what it really stood out to me as you were saying those things is those are all short-term things. The school year seems like so long. And so in the summer, we have those little bits of learning, kind of places where we're just dabbling and trying things out. It doesn't feel so heavy. And it's where you can do this lighter side of learning that really isn't lesser.
Right.
It doesn't, it's not all the stuff that we're like, day by day by day trying to create proficiency and all those other things. But in the end, we're creating neural pathways that all of those things that we are working on during the year need. And we forget how necessary all of that type of learning is to make
Mm,
everything else click.
that's so true. And it's just sort of as a final thought on the summer.
Hmm.
We work really hard as homeschooling moms. Any homeschooling mom works hard. But if you have children with the special needs and abilities, you can get weary. And
Yes,
there's nothing wrong with just taking a break from everything.
exactly.
Just do
Mhm.
that. Do what you need to do, because this journey it's for the long haul. This
It
isn't
really
a
is.
quick weekend trip somewhere.
Yeah.
This is yeah, this is years you're investing, and you need
Mhm.
to rest along the way, and don't
Absolutely.
feel like everything has to be productive, because
Yes.
like you said,
Mhm.
some of these things that don't feel productive actually are
Yeah.
productive for
Yeah.
what's
Mhm.
coming next, developing things in your child's mind and all of that. So
Absolutely.
just take the summer. If you just say, "Oh, I'm
Yep.
done," yeah, then take the
Mhm.
time you need so that you can approach the new year with that fresh attitude and excitement, knowing that
Yeah.
you have the strength um, for the next leg of the journey.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that is so important. Yeah, and you do such a good job, Annie, of encouraging moms and parents. Can you talk a little bit about your website and what people can find there too?
Yeah, so at my website, I have a blog, and every other week there'll be a post there that just really helps you to perceive God in the midst of your wild and crazy life, whatever that looks like. Um,
Yeah.
Gives you a little food for thought and a
Mhm.
little encouragement for your spirit. I like to be very real with people.
Mm,
This isn't a show for me. I think we do best when we're transparent. I also
yes.
have, as you mentioned earlier, the book that I wrote that was published
Yes.
last year, From Ignorance to Bliss. And I
Mhm.
think that's encouraging for any parent, but especially those with kids with special needs, because God is always at work through
Absolutely.
these situations. And when you can see what he's doing, it's
Mhm.
amazing.
It
And then
is.
I'm also so excited. I really haven't put out too much about this, but I am publishing this fall. My next book is coming out. It's a Christmas devotional. And you may recall, Peggy, I love Christmas.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
we've talked about that.
Yes, so, we've had an interview. So if you want to search that, look back on the past interviews.
So that's going to come out right at the beginning of November, just in time for that season. Good. And I hope people will really enjoy that. It'll be something you can read with your families. And I'm also putting out a series of videos to kind of deepen the experience for each devotion. So I'm really looking forward to that. So you can sign up at my website, and then you'll be able to keep tabs on that. If you're a big Christmas person too, you're going to enjoy this devotional.
Awesome. Yes. And that's annieyorty.com. The hyperlink will be in the show notes, so you can just click on that. But then information about your book is all on that on your website too. So you can find everything that Annie does and is doing on there. So that's exciting. And do you have a newsletter that goes out?
Yeah, I send out a quarterly newsletter to just give you some updates and some fun things, recipes and things like that. And also you can find my work at crosswalk.com pretty regularly. Yes. I do a fair number of homeschool blogs there, and other devotions and things like that are over there too.
Yeah. And Annie just did an interview. You just did one on marriage, and that, and then you've got another one coming up on writing.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting too.
So lots going on. So, well, thank you so much. This has been a great topic, really good to address during these summer months when we're all kind of thinking behind, thinking forward, and it's good to put our thinking in the right place. For sure. Yeah, and you did that.
Where we're at and move on.
Exactly. Yes. So good. All right.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate you addressing this topic. It's one that I don't think we've done. And if we have, it's been a long, long time. So yes. But the next episode that we'll be playing after this one is Tailoring Success, Crafting Effective Educational Therapy for Homeschooled Students. And that will be hosted by Stephanie Buckwalter. So she's actually interviewing her daughter's OT. So they've got some great things to tell you about that. And so you'll want to join in for that one. But thank you so much, Annie. Appreciate you as a co-host and also as a guest. It's always fun to interview you and hear all your great ideas. So
thanks, Peggy.
Absolutely. And thank you all for joining us. Have a great week. God bless. And we'll see you here next time on Empowering Homeschool Conversations. Bye, everyone.
This has been Empowering Homeschool Conversations, provided by SPED Homeschool, a nonprofit that empowers families to home educate diverse learners. To learn more, visit spedhomeschool.com.